Hi friends, I'm Tati. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the best books and the worst books that I read in 2020. So I read a lot of books in 2020, so I have gone through all of them and chosen which were the best books that I read and the worst books that I read. I'm going to start with the worst because thankfully that list is shorter, and then I'm going to move on to the best. Worst books that I read in 2020, these were books that I gave 2 or 1 star. I don't think I've given any 1-star ratings, although probably I should have. Oh no, there is one book that I've given a 1-star rating. I don't tend to give a lot of 2-star or 1-star reviews because even though I read pretty widely, I know the things that I enjoy and the things that I don't. Even though I'll try most things, I usually have a pretty good sense of what things I will enjoy and which ones I won't. I tend to stay away from books that I know I will not enjoy, so that means that I don't give as many 2 or 1-star reviews. Doesn't mean that it doesn't happen every once in a while. So here we go. This is gonna be sort of chronological throughout the year, but also just however I want to do it because it's my video. The first 2 that I want to talk about are Call Me By Your Name and Find Me. I listened to Call Me By Your Name because Taylor sent me the audiobook for this, and so I had a long day of baking cookies ahead of me, so I decided to sit down and listen to it. I had to listen to this at normal, regular 1 speed, which would not recommend no matter how soothing Armie Hammer's voice is. And also, I just didn't enjoy the story at all. The age gap between Elio and Oliver was yikes, and I just didn't enjoy this book. And honestly, I read the sequel for shits and giggles. I did it for the chaos, okay? And I listened to the entire thing on audio as well, and it was just as pretentious and as terrible as the first one, honestly. It was just, one of the things that I hated about the series was how pretentious the books were. Not for me. Anyway, next book that I wanted to talk about. I'm sorry, Skylar. I promised that I wasn't gonna bash on this book anymore, but one more time to close out the year, and that is Angry God by LJ Shen. I hated this book. It was so bad. I think I gave it 1 star. I think this is the one book that I gave a 1-star review to this year. I hated it. It was so bad. It was just not good. The romance wasn't anything that I enjoyed. Like, this is sort of bully romance, and I understand the appeal of that, but it was just not appealing to me in any way, shape, or form. Their romance was not believable. I can't even remember the main, I think the main girl was called Lenore, some shit like that. That's how forgettable this book was. And I think the main guy was called Vaughn Spencer. Yeah, because I said his name should have been Spencer Vaughn instead of Vaughn Spencer, but whatever, that's besides the point. Anyway, this book was not good. I did not enjoy it. I hated it. I hated every part of this book, so I'm just gonna move on and not talk about it ever again. The next one that I'm gonna talk about was one that I read for university, so I didn't even give a rating, but if I could give it a rating, it would have been a 1-star or a 0-star, just because that's how bad it was. And that is The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler? I can't even remember who the writer is. Oh god, give me a sec. Chandler, yes, Raymond Chandler. The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. Hated this book. The misogyny, the homophobia, the sexism. It was just bad. I hated it. This one takes the crown of worst book that I read this year, and the fact that I didn't even choose to read it, it was forced upon me, makes it even worse. Honestly, this is where truly my relationship with my crime literature class took a turn for the worst. I read this book and then it just all went downhill from there, and I just couldn't deal anymore with it. So yeah, that was like literally the worst book that I read this year, to the point that I texted Skylar and I was like, I'm gonna stop bashing Angry God because I found a worse book to hate. So there's that. And then my final book on the worst of 2020 list is The Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. I listened to this on audio. I gave it 2 stars. I wrote a whole long Goodreads post about this and how it was a shitty book with shitty characters and everybody was like a caricature of like a real person. So yeah, this book was just bad. Did not like it, would not recommend. That's that. That's on that. So yeah, those were my 5 worst books that I read in 2020. Like I said, the list is small because I tend to know myself pretty well and I know what I enjoy in books. Those books were not it for me. So there we go. Now we're gonna move on to the better stuff, to the best books that I read in 2020. Again, I sort of went through this a little bit chronological. The beauty of my reading journal, which is my first year doing it, is that I have a full record. Well, for the most part, full record, because I kind of started it around May. I have a full record of what I read this year. So it's really easy for me to dig through it and find out the stuff that I like. Let's do this. Some are by series, some are just specific books. I will point out how that works. Anyway, the first one on my list is Heartstopper. All 3 volumes are included in this entry because I love all of them. I fell in love with this graphic novel this year. I first read this in June and I've automatically fell in love with the series and the characters and the graphic novels. So I have all, these are the other 2 right back here. Right back here. So the entire series of Heartstopper is included in this entry. Next entry on my list includes the author's almost entire body of works, basically all the YA novels that the author has released, and it is Elizabeth Acevedo. So it includes The Poet X, which I have here, Clap When You Land, which I don't own a physical copy of, and With the Fire on High, which I am currently still reading, but I know it's gonna be probably a 5-star as well. So I am including all of Elizabeth Acevedo's work in this entry because I would honestly trust her with my life. I have not known what the plot of any single book of hers has been beforehand. After Poet X, I just trust her. I don't read the synopsis for any of her books. I just pick it up and I start listening to it or I start reading it. I honestly had no clue about what With the Fire on High was about. I've figured it out as I've gone along because I did not look at the synopsis at all. I just grabbed the book and I took it home. Elizabeth Acevedo is included, all of her works is included in this entry because I love her writing and she has definitely been my favorite author of 2020. So yeah. And this one is a physical copy that Sammy got me for my birthday and it is all nicely annotated. I annotated it on my second reading of the book. Next on the list is the entire Illuminate files. I only brought out the first book because they're all back there, but I didn't want to carry them all. The entire series is included in this entry, Illuminate, Gemina, Obsidio, and Memento. I fell in love with this series when I read it to the point that I binged through it all in September. I absolutely adored the series. It was so good, and I love that it is a graphic novel in a sense because it is mixed medium. I cannot gush enough about how much I love this entire series. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's just really great. This is one of the best books that I read in 2020. Next on the list is The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. I listened to this on audio, but I also have the ebook and it was so good. It was so good. I gave it 5 stars and I read this on Taylor's recommendation and I absolutely loved it. It is a kind of YA, kind of new adult. It's really right on the cusp between both, and it is a standalone fantasy about this girl Alessandra who wants to marry the king and then kill him so that she can be queen, and it is badass. She ends up falling in love with the king and it is so good. And one of the things that I loved most about it is that the main character and her love interest are both very sex positive, which I really enjoyed because we need more sex positive characters in this world. We can never have enough. Next book on the list is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. I really loved this book. I saw a lot of myself in it. I am actually transitioning more and more away from YA, but this really, I absolutely loved it. I saw a lot of teenage tati here, and I also saw a lot of like current tati in here. So it was just a great read all around. Frances, I've never felt so connected to a character other than when I read Red, White, and Royal Blue. I feel so connected to Frances as a character and in personality and how we feel about the world. This was an excellent read for me and I loved every second of it. This was actually a birthday present from Taylor, so thank you so much for bringing this into my life. And yeah, this was actually the first Alice Oseman novel that I read. I'd read Heartstopper, but I hadn't read any of her novels, and now I have all of them. Next on my list is a whole series, and it is the Thornchapel Quartet. Look, we all have our trash taste. This one's mine. The entire series is not a 5 out of 5, but it is still very good, and I enjoyed the entire series. I hated the ending of Feast of Sparks, and Harvest of Skies was a trip, but Door of Bruises made everything better, and Lesson in Thorns was just excellent. So I couldn't leave 2020 without including this on the list. Next, we have A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. Look, it was really good. It was really, really good. This is the one I'm including in this list, not the entire series as a whole, although it was excellent. I'm specifically including this one. It was so good. I read this series because my friends love this series and I wanted to read it for them, and I ended up loving it, which I was not expecting, but it was so good. So yeah, this was definitely one of the best books that I read in 2020. No shade. It was just good. It was so good. So yeah, there's that. And my final book on the list is actually Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I can hear Skylar squealing all the way from England right now. So I read this a few days ago, actually. It is the end of December when I am filming this, and I finished Warbreaker on the 25th of December, actually on Christmas Day. And this was a Christmas surprise that I did for Skylar. It was so good. I sometimes read books just because my friends want me to read them, or for my friends. So I like reading the things that my friends like, and I go in with a very open mind. And I was not expecting to love this book as much as I loved it, but it was so, so, so good. The magic system was so cool. The characters were awesome. And just everything in general about this book was so amazing. This was my first adult fantasy, and I enjoyed it so, so much. So yeah, this definitely takes a spot in my favorite books of the year. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I finished it so quickly. It was just an excellent reading experience all around, and maybe I'll read some more Brandon Sanderson throughout the year. We'll see. Those have been my favorite and least favorite books of the year. I hope you enjoyed that video. Thank you for spending this time with me. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Come yell at me in the comments, and be sure to support your local indie bookstore. I've been Tati, and I will see you on the next one. Okay, bye!